Alright guys, Man City have just made fairly easy work of Bayern Munich in the Champions League quarter-final. And it was an even game to begin with, but you never felt confident in Bayern Munich that with Serge Gnabry being the closest thing they were playing to a striker, that they were going to take their chances. And in truth, at the end of the game, I felt a little bit like watching Bayern Munich was... It was a bit like watching Germany at an international tournament lately. Just a team of good players, good technical players, but players who are going to have a lot of possession of the ball, but not do a great lot with it. So it was one of them where it's going to be a pretty disappointing feeling for Bayern Munich's players and fans, to be honest, because they weren't able to generate a lot of high quality chances, and any chances that they did get, and to be honest, most of them fell to Leroy Sané in the second half. They weren't great efforts, they were powerful efforts, but there was no precision to them, to be honest, and they were fairly comfortable saves for Ederson. There was no point in the game where Ederson, you felt like, made a world-class save. So yeah, but fair play to Man City. I think Pep Guardiola got it spot on tonight. I think the one big change that everyone noticed he made was dropping Riyad Mahrez for Bernardo Silva, and I think that was a superb idea, purely because of the threat that Alphonso Davies could have potentially caused. If him and Kingsley Coman had doubled up on, Manuel Akanji would be the closest thing that City have got to a defender on the right. But if that had happened, that could have caused City a lot of problems. But because Bernardo Silva, you're going to get a lot more defensive work from him than you are from Riyad Mahrez. Not that Mahrez is a bad player, obviously. He's one of the most technically gifted players in world football. But Bernardo Silva still has that level of technical ability. But you also get someone who's going to be in absolute, pain in the you-know-what to the opposition player who's coming up against him, because he's so difficult to get past and he's constantly in your face. So yeah, I think that was a masterstroke from Pep to get that decision spot on. And yeah, City, in terms of their all-round game, they weren't really dominant at any point throughout the game, really. They had little moments where they got on top for a few minutes, created a couple of chances in quick succession. There was about 3 or 4 of them throughout the game. But other than that, they were quite happy for Bayern Munich to have possession of the ball most of the time, but just not do a lot with it. The 3 goals coming from... Rodri, an absolute thunderbolt that, there was very little anyone for Bayern could do anything about. I think maybe you could look at someone like Joshua Kimmich or Leon Goretzka and say, could you closed him down quicker? But I think, that there's, you can't take much away from the strike itself. It's, superb, and considering that's Rodri's left foot, he has an absolute monster of a shot on him. It was like a Yaya Toure goal. The way that he can strike it so cleanly, powerful, accurately, with both feet is incredible, really. And it's, an amazing thing for a team like City to have on top of the way that they play football. It's like, okay, if we can't break you down playing our, fast, quick-paced, short, sharp pass, then we've got this guy to take a shot from distance and you're struggling. So yeah, it's an amazing asset for City to have. And they never looked out of control in this game. Man City, they got 2 goals with about 20 minutes to go from Bernardo Silva and Erling Haaland. I thought Haaland for both goals did brilliantly. The first one, it's an amazing ball over the top to Silva, it's a powerful header that he's kept on target. So it's a nice finish, but I think you can maybe possibly look at Jan Sommer in terms of could he have, got a bit more on it. He got a hand to it. Should he have kept it out completely? It may be a bit harsh, that. But the third goal, it's a lovely header across goal from John Stones for Haaland to finish. But the one player who had an absolute disaster in this game was Dayot Upamecano for Bayern Munich in defence. The second half especially just gave the ball away unnecessarily so many times. It'd be like he gets the ball, there's no City player 10 or 15 yards within, the radius of him. And he just takes his time, keeps waiting until someone like Jack Grealish comes towards him. Then he's under pressure and then he makes a mistake. It was idiotic, I would go as far as saying at times, from Upamecano, because he has shown himself in the past to be a good, competent defender. But in this game, just watching him on the ball, it was giving me headaches at times how bad it was. So yeah, that's something that needs to be drilled into him. He's got to be, quicker in his decision making in terms of what's he going to do with the ball, because you can't just let players close you down, especially a team like Man City, who will have, who Guardiola will have, drilled into them how he wants them to each position themselves when one player goes to close a player down. How does he want, say Grealish closes Upamecano down, how does he want Haaland positioned? Does he want him stuck on De Ligt? Where does he want him, to stop De Ligt from getting the ball? Does he want De Bruyne to come forward and cover where Grealish would have been? It's things like that. That's why you cannot do that against a team like Man City. And it was just, he didn't learn from his errors either. Upamecano, he kept making the same mistakes. So yeah, there was a few things that Bayern and also a few individuals got wrong. I think Jan Sommer, in terms of questioning him for the second goal, I think he sort of made up with it. He did look a bit shaky at times throughout the game, but he did make an incredible save. A couple of incredible saves in the second half, actually. But yeah, in all, it just wasn't good enough from Bayern Munich, and they definitely didn't play like a team who looked like they could win the Champions League this season. And, they're realistically not going to get to the semi-finals at this point, I don't think. They're a good team in possession, well, bar Upamecano, that is, but they just never can get into, threatening positions required to cause a lot of problems. And I do think partly that was down to having Serge Gnabry playing in a role that he's not suited to at all, when you've got someone like Sadio Mane on the bench who only came on for the last 20 minutes, and by which time the game was over, so that there wasn't the same desire for Bayern to really get forward. And also even someone like Thomas Müller, how many years now has Thomas Müller been a brilliant player for Bayern Munich? It's got to be 13, 14, 15 years now. And why is he not in the starting 11 for a game like this is what I can't understand. It's beyond me. I can't get my head around it at all. And also Musiala was meant to be the sort of attacking number 10 creative player for Bayern. But every time he picked up the ball on the edge of the box, he'd try and he is a brilliant dribbler, don't get me wrong, and I am a fan of him as a player. But he would try and, outdo himself to the point where he'd get his own feet tangled up and he'd confuse himself in what he was doing. So, yeah, it just wasn't, cohesive enough from Bayern at all. And I think, you can put that down slightly to the fact that Thomas Tuchel's just taken over as manager. He hasn't had a long time to, sort of embed his ideas on the team. But yeah, I think more than anything tonight, I think credit has to go to Man City in terms of the way they played, because recently they haven't had many games like this where they let the other team have most of the ball and they have to focus on being efficient when they do get forward, being clinical in front of goal, which they were tonight. They didn't actually have that many, shots on goal, but when they did, they made sure that they made them count. So I think Man City deserve a lot of credit for that. And yeah, in all likelihood, it's going to be them who get through to the semi-finals. And by the looks of things, it also looks like there is a good chance they'll be playing Inter Milan in those semi-finals after, I think it finished 2-0 in that game. It was certainly 2-0 with about 5 minutes to go over Benfica. And I actually thought Benfica would go through in this tie, because I haven't really been impressed with Inter Milan from what I've seen from them so far this season, whereas Benfica have looked really good in the Champions League group stages especially. So yeah, that result surprised me, especially at Benfica's home ground too. But yeah, Man City were brilliant tonight. Bayern, they weren't horrendous, but they weren't good enough. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.